Welcome to Lindamood-Bell Radio. I'm Dave Hungerford for Lindamood-Bell. Lindamood-Bell Learning Center instruction for reading comprehension and math helps students catch up or get ahead in reading. Our one-to-one customized learning plans are designed to help children feel more confident and prepared for school. Instruction is available live, online, and in person. Learn more at lindamoodbell.com. Today, I talked with some parents from Houston, and we discussed the impact of visualizing and verbalizing on their son who had speech delays. Here it is.
So we live in Houston. We're both from the Northeast. We came down here mostly for work. I'm a surgeon. I work at MD Anderson.
Yeah.
Wes is an engineer in oil and gas. So Houston is a really good place for us. Emerson goes to a local school that is speech-based.
And did he start school there in Texas, or was he in?
Yeah, he was born in Texas. So he and his two siblings have always lived in Houston. And we started at the school in kindergarten, right? Yep. So this is his 5th year. What do you think, Emerson? What's your favorite thing about the school?
I get to play at recess.
Oh.
What's your favorite school subject, though?
Math.
Uh-huh. What do you think about reading?
Reading. Just I don't usually read.
You don't usually read?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like doing reading at school?
No.
No? How come?
Well, because I don't really like reading.
Okay.
You don't really like reading, huh?
What was it like learning to read? Do you remember, Emerson, at all when you were younger?
I forgot the stories.
Yeah? You forgot the stories? You had a hard time remembering what the story was about?
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys notice that he had a hard time remembering stories too?
No, not really. I mean, so Emerson, I think reading comprehension delays or difficulties are common in children with speech delays. And so Emerson didn't start talking until he was like 4 or 5. And so that's part of why we're at the school, because of his delayed speech. And so the reading comprehension, we've sort of had an eye out for, but didn't realize how impactful or how big of a difference. And it's sort of like once you start falling behind in reading comprehension, I think it's really hard to close that gap.
Yeah. And it also starts impacting other subjects as you start to fall behind in reading comprehension. So like word problems in math and anything that you do with like history or any other kind of anything where you're expected to read and regurgitate is impacted.
Maybe even just normal conversation within the family too, if you've had.
And so it was noted as by his teachers last year.
First grade was when we first saw it.
Okay.
But they said, just ask in-depth questions when you're reading, and we have, the printout of the different questions we're supposed to ask. And we did that. And Emerson is actually good at reading and regurgitating, but it's when you ask him the more in-depth or intuitive questions. And so we eventually found our way to Lindamood-Bell and did the program last summer.
Yep.
How did you hear about Lindamood-Bell?
Do you remember?
I don't remember, actually. I think it was just mentioned at school, but not really as, hey, you guys should do it. It was more in passing, like when we said, well, what programs are out there? It was just among a list.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We had been hearing about Lindamood-Bell for years, right? And we had looked into it before, but didn't know that it was going to be a good fit or that we would be able to I guess, dedicate the time to it because it's not, or I guess it's supposed to be better if you do it kind of more vigorously, as opposed to just doing it. It's not one of those things that you do like once a week after school or something like that. And so, but we. It continued to be an issue. And then last year, when he was in third grade, it was noted as something that he needed to work on. And so we made the decision to do the summer last year in Lindamood-Bell, where he was going 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think that we started with the evaluation just to see, because we're like, well, everyone tells us he's behind, but no one has given us a more objective measure. And then when we did the evaluation, and on some level skills, he was scoring around first grade level, and he was in third grade, we kind of said, this is something that we really need to invest in, because it's only going to continue getting worse if we don't start addressing it now. So we decided to pull the trigger and do it, and it was an intense 9 or 10 week program, 5 days a week for 4 hours a day. And within the first couple of weeks, we started noticing huge differences.
Yeah.
Do you know if I can ask which program?
The visualizing and verbalizing.
And how is that explained to you? I mean, do you feel like you understand the concepts and precepts behind it?
So when we first started looking into it, I did buy the Visualizing and Verbalizing book off of Amazon. And I tried to kind of do it and learn about it and tried to implement it at home, but it was a little more difficult to do. But essentially what it is trying to make it so that readers comprehend what they're reading by forming pictures in their mind as they read.
And so it kind of forces the comprehension, because you are making these mental images, and then it also helps to reinforce your ability to recall those mental images when you're thinking about the story again, or thinking about context, or trying to decide what is actually going on.
It's really interesting to me, just having done this for so long, seeing so many people, what the range is in individuals of how conscious they are of that imagery. I mean, you have to do it to some extent, but there are even experts that in the field that have drawn a line in the sand that they absolutely do not image anything, and yet they've got their PhDs and this and that.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't, you wouldn't survive. Period.
Well,
it's interesting how that developed.
Yeah, we're learning now that also having mental images helps with executive function. And because it forces you to make a plan in your mind about how you're going to achieve something, and you sort of self-talk your way through it based on your mental imagery. And so I think that is part of like the change that we started seeing, where Emerson suddenly was starting to picture things in his mind a lot more.
Right. And it was not just, it wasn't just reading comprehension that we were seeing the changes really quickly. And we were seeing conversationally, he was using different vocabulary. He was being more descriptive just in general. We would walk around, our neighborhood, and his descriptions of what he was seeing were starting to change to include so many more things that were obviously, things that are that are used for the mental imagery. So, colors and shapes, and more abstract shapes, and noticing different things about, leaves and different parts of houses, and how they look to him and what they remind him of. And so those things were very noticeable right off the bat.
Even driving, he'll say, hey, did you see that house with the whatever? Or did you see that car? Or it's that sign? And it's almost like he was more aware, at least communicating his awareness of the world around us.
Yeah.
I wonder if our world is, for kids, certainly so much, it's just so passive for them because so much imagery is presented to them, and
right.
on screen after screen after screen, if that is creating an uptick in that sort of lack of development of that, one would expect.
Right. And that was another part that we were seeing, is that his ability to kind of understand more of kind of minor plot points or perspective taking in like shows or movies or something like that he would watch also seemed to increase after we started with Lindamood-Bell. So and the questions that he would ask were much more I don't know what the word is, I guess insightful about the material that we were watching.
Yeah, and he would actually, he still does this, but when we watch movies, if there's a plot twist or a frame shift where something is implied, he'll sometimes turn to his brother and sister and say, hey, and he'll explain it. As opposed to just kind of like mindlessly sitting there, he's actually thinking like, okay, what just happened? And then he'll explain it to them. I mean, these are just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
These changes that we've seen.
Increased vocabulary, like increased, usage of vocabulary, not just like memorizing what does a word mean, but actually using it all the time, idioms and different vocabulary words and stuff like that. We definitely saw a marked increase in that after he started at Lindamood-Bell. So it was more. It was a bigger positive change, I think, than we were expecting, and a bigger positive change in a lot of different areas that we weren't expecting it to be. It wasn't just his reading comprehension; it was globally kind of
open the world for him.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
He just to give you an example, Wes asked him to do something and he didn't do it, and Wes said, "Didn't I just ask you to do this?" And Emerson said, "You didn't say immediately."
Right.
And again, like that application, like he knew what the word meant, and then he knew how to use it against us.
Yep,
that was
right. Double-edged sword, of course.
Maybe is that a legal option for a life career?
That's right.
Did you do the instruction online at all?
We did not. We did the evaluation was online because the center was not in person, but Emerson definitely is someone who does better when he's in person.
Yeah.
And so that was for us, as soon as it was available, we just said, we're doing it in person.
Yeah.
Any changes in his school activities that have happened after he was finished? Has it been sort of sustained, do you feel?
I do, to some extent. So his teacher has noted, we get monthly sort of updates on him, and his teacher has noted academic progress this year, even within the first few months. I feel like the center here has been really invested in this Emerson's success, not just while he was in the program, but beyond. So we had wanted to do intensive sessions over break, but since it would just be a few days here and there, they thought that really wouldn't benefit him. But what the center did was they actually provided us with some materials, and we meet with a woman, and she sort of tutors us and goes through some of the materials just to keep it fresh for him. And so we're actually working on grade level visualizing and verbalizing materials this year. And I'm hoping that what that does is then set us up for more success with an intensive program in the summer.
Yeah. One of the places that we do see things is like when we're doing homework, one of the things that I mentioned before was like word problems in math and stuff like that. And I think that the visualizing and verbalizing has given him some of that, or some of those tools that he is able to use to be able to work through those problems more independently. And so it's hard to describe, but it requires so much less prompting on my side to be able to get him to understand what the question being asked is and where are the words that are important to understanding, like what's the arithmetic involved. That has been a big difference this year compared to prior to going through the Lindamood-Bell program. So just his ability to kind of grasp those types of problems has definitely increased.
Right. It does. The program goes to such a granular level of, I don't know if you've probably seen it in action, I'm sure, but the little the cards that have movement and color and helps develop the imagery at such a basic level. It really breaks things down, and then to build it back up to where you're getting the concepts, it's a big step, and it's not surprising that it takes, you know, weeks of that intensive work. Was he? Were there moments that were kind of aha moments or an ebb and flow during the instruction, if you recall, that like things started to click for him? Or?
We saw a pretty quick change. Like within the second week, we started noticing that he was like describing things more. And I don't know if it was more of it that it clicked or it was an aha moment. We were just kind of like, whoa, like we're having conversations with our son on a whole new level. And he's able to communicate with us almost on a whole new level. And it really, it's been pretty awesome. Like I can't, and you know, all of his, his speech therapist noted it, and pretty much everyone who interacts with him noticed that he was able to, he was making more progress, even like OT and speech and just his communication.
Yeah, his ability to express himself. Right?
Yeah, and expressing himself. And, you know, you had asked about like sustained. So recently he said, Mom, I read this book. And usually when he reads a book, he'll mostly focus on the picture. So I said, oh yeah, what's the book about? And so he actually went through and told me a whole plot line. Like, I don't actually know. I didn't go back and check the book, but he told me the whole plot of this book from start to finish. And it was a book that he had read completely independently, which is not something that he would do. I would have done last year. So I don't know that he would have even done it at the end of Lindamood-Bell. Again, like, I think that this is something that we're seeing sustained effects from.
Did he come in? Was his vocabulary in the range when he
No. So it's still not, or that's still something that we're focusing on. And actually, he got to the point at Lindamood-Bell where the vocabulary started limiting his progress within the levels. But
so you guys, or Lindamood-Bell shifted, or the program shifted to really concentrate on that more and to really push the vocabulary. And it allowed him, like he was starting to not stay on track for what the goals were that when we first started. And after doing more intensive vocabulary for a little while, he was able to make up all of that ground and come back to where he was expected to be by the end of the summer. So that was one of those things that really seemed to make a big impact for him.
But again, the way the program flexed to accommodate, and we had known that might come up, and so that's something that we had been warned might happen. But the fact that they were anticipating it and flexed and still were able to get them where we needed to be was
not only that, but the instructor's ability to identify that. Or use the program to identify that and to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what's holding us back now. This is what we need to focus on, and that will allow us to keep moving forward. And then they implemented it, and then it did exactly what they said it was going to do. Was awesome.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Very good to hear. And were you able to participate in like weekly or biweekly or regularly scheduled parent like overviews of during the sessions?
Yeah, biweekly.
Yeah.
And those were great.
What happened during those? What specifically did they?
So they would show us where on the sort of there's a rating scale, like introduced, not introduced, I can't remember, proficient, and then mastered, essentially. I don't remember the exact letters, but they had it for like single sentence, multiple sentence, paragraph learning, and then for each grade. And they would show us where he was, and they would show it. We were able to follow along and track the progress that he was making in each session. They would give us concrete examples. They would
give us like examples of his, they would have their marked sheet of how he performed for, particular passages or what he was working on.
Right. And they, I remember they said, yeah, we sometimes have to rein him in for his descriptions. And I was like, really? Because when we ask him to describe things, it's like, pulling teeth. And they said, yeah, we asked him to describe a spider, and he ended up describing a robot spider attacking a town. And he was going into all of the death and destruction that this robot spider was enacting. And they had to be like, okay, but really just describe a spider, like a regular spider. And so, but again, this is sort of the fire that was lit under him. And so it's, yeah. But that's the kind of thing we would glean. So we would be able to track his progress, and they would tell us, well, we expected him to be here, or he's ahead of where we expected him to be. And we kind of knew at every point where he was in the program.
Right. Then on the final testing,
he was a little inconsistent. He's not a very consistent test taker necessarily in general, but he went further on the tests. And so in some things, and I think even some comprehension measures even got up to 5th grade, which was way above and beyond where we would have expected him.
Yeah.
So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were very happy. The team, communication was great with the team the entire time. The evaluation methods let us know where he was and where they expected him to be, and seemed like they were, updated. I don't want to say real-time updated, but they're updated every 2 weeks and with a current trajectory of what he was working on and where they saw him. And, we're flexible about the plans, accepted our input for things and for strategies to help, keep him on task, or if he was, not, I don't know, if they were having a hard time engaging him or anything like that. Right. And it was great. We had a wonderful experience. The staff here was great. We had 0 complaints, and has continued to be great and continued to help support us and help support Emerson.
Yep.
And
good job, Amun, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I feel like we got a lot more out of the program than we anticipated.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about reading comprehension at the end of the day. It was about, world perspective and sort of perception and ability to communicate his thoughts about everything going on around him to us.
Yeah.
So we've been really grateful for this program.
That's a bonus, but it's good to hear that, to be able to think about that and have that happen so early in 4th or 5th grade is a big step up. That's great. We have a lot of adult students too, that have go through the same program, and it's very different at that point to try and undo years of all the techniques they do to read, teachers or bosses' face to make sure they're doing something correctly, and to actually understand what they're supposed to be doing is a very different change.
He actually recently, Emerson was angry about something after school, and I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, Mom, I don't know why I have to be busy. Every day after school I have something, and I'm so busy, and it makes me frustrated." And I was like, 99% of adults cannot express that. The fact that you acknowledged that, tapped into it, and then communicated that to me was amazing.
Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, but can I stop doing all these things?"
No, you can't.
I'm glad that you I used my words well, but can I go?
Right. The Lindamood-Bell program, it's a big commitment, and it's a little bit unknown when you're signing up for it. There's a big time commitment, and so of course we were concerned that it wasn't going to be worth it, and it was
so worth it.
So worth it for us.
It's so worth it for us. We're willing to do it again next summer.
Yeah, and we saw such huge improvements just generally with Emerson and his expressive and receptive speech, his reading ability, it kind of bled over into all of his other subjects, and so for us, it was a great experience, and so it made a big difference for him and for us, just day to day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate it so much, especially in these days.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And thank you for listening. Learn more about us at lindamood-bell.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We are Lindamood-Bell.